Hey everyone, it's Alex and welcome back to the channel. Today we're diving into a topic that's complex, often misunderstood, and incredibly important: deportation in the United States. Now, when we hear the word deportation, it can conjure up images of immediate expulsion, but the reality is far more nuanced. It's not as simple as being stopped on the street one day and put on a plane the next. Deportation is actually a legal process, one with multiple stages, potential defenses, and yes, a lot of bureaucratic hurdles. And it's a process that impacts millions of people. According to the Migration Policy Institute, there are over 11 million undocumented immigrants living in the United States. That's millions of individuals who, for various reasons, are living in a constant state of uncertainty, unsure of their future in the country they call home. So, whether you're personally affected by deportation, or simply want to understand this crucial aspect of U.S. immigration law, stick around. Because in this video we're going to break down exactly what deportation is, who it affects, and how the entire process unfolds, step by step. Let's get started. Okay, so before we get into the nitty-gritty of the deportation process, let's define what we mean by deportation. In the simplest terms, deportation is the legal process by which the U.S. government orders a non-citizen to leave the country. But here's the thing. It's not a random or arbitrary act. It's governed by a complex web of immigration laws, regulations, and court decisions. Think of it like a legal case, because that's essentially what it is. There are specific grounds for deportation, procedures that must be followed, and opportunities for individuals to fight their case. Now you might be wondering, who has the authority to deport someone? Well, that responsibility falls under the jurisdiction of the U.S. Immigration and Customs Enforcement, better known as ICE. ICE is the agency tasked with enforcing immigration laws within the United States. However, it's important to remember that ICE isn't a judge, jury, and executioner all rolled into one. While they initiate the deportation process, the final say often rests with immigration judges who preside over deportation hearings. These judges have the power to either order deportation or allow the individual to remain in the country. Now, let's talk about the reasons why someone might face deportation. Contrary to popular belief, it's not just about being undocumented. Sure, entering the U.S. without authorization is a deportable offense, but it's far from the only one. In fact, even legal permanent residents, those with green cards, can be subject to deportation under certain circumstances. This can include things like committing serious crimes, violating the terms of their visa, or even being convicted of multiple minor offenses. And it's not just about what you've done, but also when you did it. For instance, a minor offense committed years ago might not be grounds for deportation today, but it could become a problem if it comes to light later on, especially if the individual is applying for citizenship or other immigration benefits. So, the bottom line is this: deportation is a complex issue with a wide range of potential triggers, and understanding the specific grounds for deportation is crucial for anyone navigating the U.S. immigration system. So, we've established that deportation is a complex legal process, but it begs the question, who exactly is at risk? The answer, unfortunately, is a lot of people. While it's difficult to put an exact number on it, millions of individuals living in the U.S. are potentially deportable. Now, when we talk about who can be deported, it's crucial to understand that the law doesn't make distinctions based on your moral character, your contributions to society, or how long you've lived in the U.S. It's primarily about your immigration status and whether you meet specific criteria outlined in immigration law. The most obvious group at risk are those who are undocumented, meaning they entered the country without authorization or overstayed their visas. This is a significant population, with estimates suggesting there are over 11 million undocumented immigrants living in the U.S. But here's the thing: even those with legal status, like green card holders or visa holders, aren't immune to deportation. In fact, certain actions or convictions can jeopardize their status and put them in a position where they could face removal proceedings. Let's look at the categories. To better understand who's at risk, it's helpful to break down the potential grounds for deportation into a few key categories. One of the most common is criminal activity. Not every minor infraction will get you deported. However, aggravated felonies can have serious consequences. This includes drug trafficking, violent crimes, or fraud. Violations of immigration law itself can also lead to deportation. This includes working without authorization or overstaying a visa. Immigration law distinguishes between mandatory and discretionary grounds for deportation. Mandatory grounds leave little room for interpretation. Discretionary grounds offer more flexibility. Judges can consider ties to the community, family situation, and work history. Seeking legal counsel is crucial. How does deportation start? Not usually with a knock at dawn. It starts with a notice to appear, or NTA. This is a legal summons. The government wants you in court to discuss your status. The NTA lists why you might be deportable, and the hearing details. Missing the court date can lead to a deportation order. It's crucial to know your rights and get legal advice. Now here's where things can get really complicated. Upon being issued a notice to appear, some people are detained, meaning they're taken into custody by immigration officials. This often happens if they're considered a flight risk or a danger to the community, though the criteria for those labels can be frustratingly vague. Imagine, you're just going about your day, and suddenly you're facing the very real possibility of being locked up while you await your hearing. It's a stark reminder that the U.S. immigration system doesn't always prioritize compassion or individual circumstances. Others might be released on bond or under certain conditions, like wearing an ankle monitor or checking in regularly with immigration officials. This allows them to remain in their communities while they fight their case, but it's still a hugely stressful and disruptive experience. The decision of whether to detain someone or release them is often made on a case-by-case basis, and it's influenced by a whole host of factors. This lack of consistency and transparency just adds to the anxiety and uncertainty that people facing deportation have to navigate. Let's talk about immigration courts, where the drama unfolds. Unlike criminal courts, immigration courts are administrative and operate differently. Immigrants facing deportation don't have the same rights as criminal defendants. They're not automatically provided with a lawyer if they can't afford one. It's a high-stakes battle, often against a trained government attorney. The system feels stacked against the individual, with language barriers and complex laws. Seek legal representation if you're ever in this situation. Alright, so we've talked about the notice to appear, detention, and the daunting prospect of immigration court, but here's the good news: getting a notice to appear isn't a guarantee of deportation. There are ways to fight back, legal defenses that can be used to argue for the right to stay in the United States. Remember, the U.S. legal system is based on the principle of due process, which means everyone deserves a fair chance to make their case. And in the world of immigration law, that means exploring every possible avenue to demonstrate why you should be allowed to remain in the country. These defenses can range from challenging the grounds for deportation itself, to presenting arguments based on humanitarian factors, family ties in the U.S., or contributions to the community. It's all about building the strongest possible case and presenting it effectively in court. This is where having a skilled and experienced immigration attorney on your side is absolutely invaluable. They know the ins and outs of immigration law, they understand the procedures, and they can help you navigate the complexities of the system. One common defense against deportation is cancellation of removal. It allows certain non-citizens to stay in the U.S. based on good moral character and family hardship. You've built a life here, you have a family, you contribute to your community. Removing someone can be incredibly disruptive and harmful to their loved ones. To qualify, you need to meet certain requirements like continuous residence and good moral character. It's a high bar, but for many, it's a chance to stay in the country they call home. For those fleeing persecution, asylum and withholding of removal offer crucial protections. These protections are vital for those facing harm due to race, religion, nationality, political opinion, or social group. Applying for asylum is complex and emotionally taxing. Seek qualified legal help early to understand your rights and explore all possible avenues for relief. Okay, so we've talked about who's at risk of deportation, how the process works, and even some ways to fight it. But let's be real, the whole deportation thing feels kind of shrouded in myth and misunderstanding, right? Like this idea that every undocumented immigrant is living in constant fear, looking over their shoulder. And look, I'm not saying fear doesn't exist, of course it does. But the reality is far more nuanced. We're talking about millions of people, each with their own unique story, their own experiences. Some might live relatively normal lives, working, raising families, contributing to their communities. Others might live with more anxiety, especially in the current political climate. The point is, it's dangerous and dehumanizing to paint an entire group of people with such a broad brush. We need to remember that behind the statistics, behind the legal jargon, are real human lives. Lives full of hopes, dreams, fears, just like yours and mine. And that's why understanding the facts, separating them from the myths, is so crucial. Because only then can we start to have a more informed, more compassionate conversation about immigration. Another big misconception is that deportation only happens to bad hombres, right? That somehow you have to do something truly terrible to get deported. But as we've seen, that's just not true. Yes, committing a serious crime can definitely get you deported, but so can overstaying your visa, even by a few days, or getting a DUI, even if it's your first offense. And in some cases, even minor infractions like traffic violations can lead to deportation for folks who are already in a precarious legal situation. It's like this. Imagine living in a world where a parking ticket could get you kicked out of the country. That's the reality for many undocumented immigrants, and it creates this constant state of vulnerability, this fear that any little mistake, any misstep, could have life-altering consequences. And that's just not right. It goes against the very values of fairness and justice that this country was founded on. This is a big one, and it's understandable why people feel this way. The deportation system can feel huge, impersonal, impossible to fight. But here's the thing. We're not powerless. We can make a difference. First, we need to educate ourselves. The more we understand about the complexities of immigration law, the more equipped we are to challenge misinformation and advocate for change. Second, we can support organizations doing incredible work on the ground. Groups that provide legal aid to immigrants facing deportation, groups that fight for policy changes, groups that offer support and resources to families torn apart by deportation. And finally, we can use our voices. We can contact our elected officials, we can speak out against unjust policies, we can amplify the stories of those directly impacted by the deportation system. Because here's the truth, change doesn't happen overnight. It takes sustained effort, collective action, and a whole lot of hope. But it is possible. We can create a more just and compassionate immigration system, but it starts with each of us. So we've covered a lot of ground, haven't we? From the ins and outs of the deportation process to the myths and misconceptions surrounding it. And I know it can feel overwhelming, even disheartening at times, but here's the thing. Knowledge is power. And now that you have a better understanding of how deportation works, you're empowered to do something about it. First things first, if you found this video even remotely helpful, please hit that like button and subscribe to the channel. It really does help get this information out to a wider audience. And don't forget to hit the notification bell so you don't miss out on future videos about important social issues. But beyond that, I encourage you to take what you've learned today and share it with others. Talk to your friends, your family, your coworkers. Start conversations about immigration in a way that's informed, respectful, and compassionate. Now I know what you're thinking, John, I'm just one person. What can I really do to make a difference in this massive, complex system? And that's a fair question, but here's the thing. Even small actions can have a ripple effect. One of the most impactful things you can do is support organizations that are working tirelessly on the front lines of this issue. Groups like the American Immigration Council, the National Immigration Law Center, and the Immigrant Defense Project are doing incredible work, providing legal representation, advocating for policy changes, and supporting immigrant communities. These organizations rely heavily on donations to continue their crucial work. Even a small contribution can make a big difference in the lives of immigrants facing deportation. And if you're not in a position to donate financially, that's okay. There are other ways to support these organizations. You can volunteer your time, spread the word about their work on social media, or even just educate yourself further on the issues they're tackling. every little bit helps. And finally, never underestimate the power of your voice. In a democracy, our elected officials are supposed to represent us, the people. That means they need to hear from us, even when it's about tough issues like immigration. Don't be afraid to contact your representatives and let them know where you stand on deportation policies. You can write letters, send emails, make phone calls, or even attend town hall meetings. And remember, you don't have to be an expert on immigration law to make your voice heard. You can simply share your personal stories, your concerns, and your hopes for a more just and humane immigration system. The more people who speak out against unjust policies, the louder our collective voice becomes. And when enough voices come together, they have the power to create real, lasting change. It's happened before, and it can happen again. That's it for this deep dive into the world of deportation in the U.S. Remember, this is just a starting point. There's so much more to learn, so much more to discuss, and most importantly, so much more we can do to create a more just and compassionate immigration system. Stay curious, stay informed, and stay engaged. Thanks for watching.